Have you ever felt like your spiritual life is just kind of all over the place? Some days you feel on top of the world, super strong, and other days, not so much. Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into this really powerful idea, how to move from a faith that feels shaky to one that stands firm on solid rock. So let's get right into it. So let me just ask you this, straight up. When life gets tough, and you know it always does your faith feel stable, or does it kind of start to wobble? This really gets to the heart of the whole thing. What are we actually building our spiritual lives on? Jesus used this brilliant analogy for this exact thing back in Matthew chapter 7. He talked about two guys building houses. One built his house on sand, and, well, you can guess what happened. When the storm came, the whole thing just crashed. But the other guy, the wise one, he built his house on solid rock, and it stood firm no matter what. This metaphor, it's the key to everything we're about to unpack. So what exactly is this house of sand? What are these shaky foundations that can make our faith feel so fragile? Let's take a closer look. Now, it's super important to see that these things aren't bad. Of course not. Personal experiences can be amazing. Our emotions are a gift, and traditions can be so valuable. But here's the problem. They're all subjective. They all change. If your faith is built only on a powerful thing that happened in the past, or how you feel right now, what happens when a new challenge hits, or those feelings just fade? That's the sandy ground. It just can't hold you up. Okay, so if experiences, emotions, and even traditions are like sand, then what in the world is the rock? Well, the answer we're given is incredibly clear, and there's only one. The only foundation that never, ever moves, that never changes, that never fails, is Jesus himself. He's called the unshakable rock, and like it says in Hebrews, the author and perfecter of our faith. See, unlike our feelings or shifting traditions, he's the objective, unchanging truth we can build our entire lives on. Okay, so building our lives on Jesus is the goal, but how do we actually do that? What does that look like on a Tuesday afternoon? This is where things get really practical, showing us Jesus not just as someone to believe in, but as a daily role model to follow. The Apostle Paul puts it this way. The whole point is to become a new self, a new person, created to be like God. The big idea here is that Jesus, when he was here, came to show us exactly what that new self looks like in action. He is the blueprint. And this analogy just illustrates the idea so perfectly. Think about it. If you wanted to learn to paint like a master, you wouldn't just read about them, would you? No, you'd study and copy their actual paintings, stroke for stroke. The argument is that it's the exact same for our character. To become this new person, we have to copy Jesus, day in and day out. So what's the masterpiece we're supposed to be copying? It's these things right here. And these aren't just abstract ideas. They are the character traits Jesus lived out every single day. His love, his incredible forgiveness, his deep humility and obedience, his patience with people, and his compassion for anyone who is hurting. This is the divine DNA we're called to imitate. And this is just so crucial. Jesus' invitation was never just a call for us to sit back and passively believe. He was constantly saying things like, "Follow me, learn from me, and do as I have done." It's a call to get up and actively imitate him. It's about modeling our lives, our reactions, our choices, our hearts after his. Now, this is where a really important warning comes in, because it's actually very easy, even when we have the best intentions, to let other things take the place of Jesus as our main role model. And again, these substitutes aren't bad things. A successful ministry program can be fantastic. An inspiring spiritual leader can be a true gift. A wonderful spiritual experience can be life-changing. But we're warned that when we start modeling our faith on a program or a person, or even a past feeling instead of on Jesus himself, we've just swapped the rock for sand all over again. The focus has to always remain on Jesus. Okay, this brings us to the most practical part of this whole thing. How do we actually keep our focus on Jesus and actively imitate him? Well, the key is to zero in on 3 simple daily actions. So how do we put this into practice? First, we have to observe him. That means reading the Gospels not just to hear his words, but to watch his actions. Second, we have to pause. In that tough moment, the goal is to stop and ask, what would Jesus do here? And let his example guide what we do next. And finally, it's about partnership, finding other people who have the same goal of living like him. This really just gets to the absolute heart of it all. Being a follower of Jesus, a disciple, isn't about winning some trivia game of religious facts. It's not about how much knowledge you can collect. It's about transformation. It's about becoming an imitator. And this is the ultimate takeaway. For a lot of people, Jesus is their savior, the one who rescued them, which is amazing. But the challenge here is to go deeper, to let him also be our daily role model, the one we look to for how to live, how to love, and really how to be human in the way we were always meant to be. So we'll leave you with this final thought. And it's not a question for tomorrow or next week, but for right now. In your conversations, your decisions, and your attitude for the rest of today, how will you choose to imitate Jesus?